You are hovering over the classifieds, your finger trembling slightly over the button that reads "Buy Now," because the price seems ludicrously low for what was once the flagship saloon of the world's finest purveyor of driving machines. It looks like a bargain, does not it? A slice of executive luxury for the price of a second-hand garden shed full of wasps. Stop it right now, put the mouse down, step away from the keyboard, and perhaps go and stare at a wall for 10 minutes to clear your mind of this utter lunacy. Because the BMW 7 Series E65 and its long wheelbase counterpart, the E66, is not a bargain. It is a monumental trap, a mechanical bear pit lined with spikes made of solid gold repair bills. The point is, the E65 did not just introduce controversial styling. It ushered in an entirely new era of engineering malice designed purely to destroy the bank accounts of second-hand buyers. The man responsible for the shape, Chris Bangle, bless his brave but ultimately visually impaired soul, created a boot lid that looked like an afterthought. It is a piece of automotive design so jarring it was immediately nicknamed the Bangle butt. It looks like the car was finished, and then someone accidentally reversed into a skip full of older, much uglier 5 Series parts and they welded the debris on as a hasty fix. And another thing, the front end is not much better, staring out at the world with the bewildered expression of a goldfish that has just realized it is swimming in petrol. You are not buying a status symbol, you are buying proof that your taste in aesthetics peaked somewhere around the time shell suits were considered fashionable. Let us get straight to the beating heart of this digital disaster, the notorious iDrive system. Now, when this car was launched, BMW decided that buttons were for peasants and simplicity was for fools. They replaced everything, absolutely everything, with a single rotating knob and a screen that required a degree in advanced cryptology just to turn the radio on. Adjusting the climate control becomes a 12-step program involving menu diving that makes the deep web look like a primary school reading assignment. You are supposed to be driving, focused on the road, but instead you are negotiating a digital labyrinth just to stop the heater from boiling your left foot. It is a masterpiece of over-engineering, designed by people who clearly hate the concept of quick access and logical layout. The unit itself is famously fragile, of course. The control unit will inevitably fail. Perhaps the screen will flicker into a sort of digital death throw, forcing you to spend the equivalent of a small family holiday just to regain the ability to navigate through the car's settings, which are hidden behind 7 submenus anyway. Now for the engines, because this is where the E65 truly delivers on its promise of financial oblivion. The V8 models, the 735i and the 745i sporting the N62 engine, are spectacular monuments to poor German planning. They consume oil with the enthusiasm of a desert caravan drinking from an oasis. This is not normal oil consumption. This is a constant thirst that necessitates keeping a 5-liter drum of synthetic dinosaur juice in the boot at all times. The culprit, invariably, is the valve stem seals, which harden faster than a politician's heart and allow oil to escape into the combustion chambers, coating the back of the car in a fine blue haze every time you slow down and accelerate again. Replacing these requires a mechanic who is either highly specialized or clinically insane, as it is a 4-digit job involving the removal of large parts of the cylinder head, a feat that only a certified BMW technician should attempt, and even they are weeping into their torque wrenches while doing it. The point is, that is not the only catastrophic weakness of the N62. And another thing, there is the coolant transfer pipe. This is perhaps the single most ludicrous design flaw in the history of automotive manufacturing. BMW ran a fragile plastic coolant pipe through the V of the engine block, underneath the inlet manifold, an area that achieves temperatures roughly equivalent to the surface of the sun. Predictably, it degrades and leaks, requiring a bespoke tool and an 8-hour surgical procedure to replace. If you ignore it, which is easy to do because the leak starts small and insidious, your powerful executive saloon will overheat and instantly become a 2-ton paperweight, destined for the scrapyard unless you have access to a Swiss vault full of spare cash. Moving past the oil and water disaster zones, let us discuss the suspension. BMW loaded these cars with complexity, all in the pursuit of that ultimate driving machine feel, which is utterly pointless in a car the size of the British Houses of Parliament. You have dynamic drive, active roll stabilization, and electronic damper control. These systems use hydraulic lines, electronic actuators, and sensors that communicate via arcane digital signals. When they work, the car handles well for something that weighs roughly the same as a light aircraft. When they inevitably fail, often due to a leaky hydraulic line or a sensor that has decided to retire early. The dashboard lights up like a Christmas tree and your luxurious saloon suddenly handles like a drunk boat in a hurricane. You will be looking at replacement costs that make you consider selling a kidney just to afford the genuine BMW parts, because the aftermarket has wisely chosen to ignore this particular pit of despair. And another thing, the electrics. The E65 is a networking hub of terrifying proportions. It manages power via a complex intelligent battery sensor, which is frequently blamed for the phantom electric failures and random non-starting issues these cars are famous for. The key here is that everything communicates on a bus system, meaning one failing sensor or module can take down an entire network. The door locks are fragile. The soft close mechanism which gently pulls the door shut will inevitably stop working, making a horrible grinding noise that sounds like a very expensive tin opener attacking a can of misery. The trunk mechanism is also hydraulic or motorized, and it too is prone to spectacularly catastrophic failure. Replacing the motor or the module requires special tools and more money than you spent on the car initially, which is why so many older E65s have boot lids that look slightly ajar or doors that require a proper, enthusiastic slam. The point is, the transmission is also a factor in this misery parade. BMW used the reputable ZF 6-speed automatic gearbox, but they claimed the fluid was lifetime. This is a German joke, the punchline of which is your enormous repair bill. If the fluid has not been changed every 60,000 miles, you are cruising towards a slip-up in the mechatronic sleeve, or perhaps a catastrophic failure of the torque converter itself. You buy this car cheaply, thinking you are clever, only to discover that the first service should include a full drivetrain overhaul, a refurbishment of the entire electrical architecture, and probably a structural renovation of your personal finances. Let us consider the smaller, more insidious failures, the ones that do not immediately stop the car but simply erode your will to live. The climate control fan final stage resistor, the hedgehog, is a recurring nightmare. It fails, leaving you with an unpredictable fan speed that either blasts air at hurricane force or refuses to move any air at all. The parking brake motor is known to seize, leaving the car either permanently locked in place or rolling down the street like a disgruntled tanker. The ABS module, nestled near the engine, fails due to heat and vibration, leading to warning lights that tell you the car has forgotten how to brake, a feature that I find particularly unhelpful in a large German saloon capable of speeds near the double-century mark. And another thing, you must understand the sheer audacity of the E65's complexity. It has so many integrated components that even changing the main battery requires registering the new one with the vehicle via a specialized diagnostic tool. Fail to do this, and the car will panic, refusing to charge the battery correctly, leading to a cascade failure of electronic components that leaves the car weeping digital tears on your driveway. You are not just buying a car, you are buying a relationship with a high-end diagnostic machine and a technician who looks at you with a mixture of pity and predatory glee every time you walk through the workshop doors. The engines found in the post-facelift models, like the 750i with the N63, are arguably worse, riddled with turbo cooling issues and direct injection complexity that makes the early V8s look like simple steam engines by comparison. But even the straight sixes, the 730i, whilst more reliable in the cooling department, still suffer from the E65's fundamental inability to keep its electronics in order. The point is, this car was built in a fever dream of technological ambition, where every single function was deemed too simple and required digitization and integration into the iDrive system. It is a monument to excessive complication, a four-wheeled lesson in why sometimes buttons are actually better. You are looking at a car that was once sold to powerful business executives, but now, reduced to the price of a mid-range hatchback, it exists purely to prey on the optimistic but foolish enthusiast. Think of the ownership experience. You pull up to a petrol station, you spend 50 quid filling it with high-octane fuel, and then another £10 on engine oil because the gauge says it is mysteriously low again. You start the car, and the dashboard flickers, illuminating 7 different warning lights ranging from brake fluid low to transmission malfunction. You try to turn the radio on, and the iDrive system freezes, leaving you staring at a blank screen while the car's computer attempts a full system reboot that takes longer than starting up a 1990s desktop PC. And another thing, the feeling of driving this behemoth, once a symbol of success, is now tainted by the constant hum of worry in your stomach. You are not enjoying the buttery smooth V8 power. You are listening for that telltale ticking noise that signifies the timing chain tensioner is giving up the ghost, or perhaps the faint smell of hot oil that indicates the valve stem seals are weeping their expensive death tears once more. You are not driving, you are managing a crisis, a rolling mechanical catastrophe that requires constant digital coddling and a hefty line of credit. The simple truth is, if you must have an enormous German saloon, buy the W220 or W221 Mercedes S-Class. Yes, they have their air suspension issues, but they are at least visually pleasing, and the electronics were built by people who understood that a volume knob should only require one physical action, not 12 taps of a digital screen and a confirmatory press of a terrifying rotating wheel. The E65 is a testament to the belief that just because you can design something complex, it does not mean you should. It is a mechanical warning sign, draped in slightly awkward sheet metal, screaming "Do not enter" at anyone who values their financial security and their sanity. So when you see that temptingly low price tag, remember this. That price is not the cost of entry, it is the down payment on a lifestyle of anxiety, expensive diagnostic work, and the constant stench of burning oil. You are better off buying a Reliant Robin. At least when that breaks down, you can fix it with a hammer and a roll of duct tape, rather than a £3,000 software update and a new coolant pipe that requires removing half the engine bay. Avoid this car. Treat it as if it is carrying a communicable financial disease. You will thank me later, when you are not standing on the hard shoulder, watching your German executive cruiser boil its own synthetic oil while the sophisticated dashboard politely informs you that all systems have failed. It is a terrible car. Buy something else. Anything else.